So I think of myself as a pretty normal homeowner mechanic, and I use, but I certainly do not abuse my tools. So I just can't fathom how a power cord can end up looking like this. Well, my theory is that somebody at some point in time thought they had a clever way of cutting costs in the insulation, and it just didn't work out over time. But regardless, I'm left with the task of replacing it now. So it all starts simply enough with these 8 Torx screws. T20 is the bit you'll need. And don't forget these 2 Phillips screws that are on the bottom. And of course, keep track of the nuts that capture those screws. Okay, with it opened up now, we can see where the switch is, and what's interesting is of course that the actual electrical switch is in the back of the unit, but they had to translate the mechanical motion all the way back to that switch just with a long arm. Okay, so now it's time to remove the electrical switch and detach the wires that are coming from the power cord. So these are just conventional spade connectors, and if I had other spade connectors, I could have just put on new ones, but I decided I was going to swap and pull these spade connectors off, cut them off, and then move them over to my new cable. Okay, I moved the strain relief off from the old cord. Now it's on the new cord, and now I just have to start to prepare to put the spade connectors on. So here I'm just clipping off the ground conductor because again, the grinder doesn't need a ground connection. That just happened to be the kind of cord that I had. So I mentioned that I was going to take the 2 spade connectors from the old cord, cut those off, and then solder them onto my new cord. And I'm just putting a little flux on the connections here, and then I'm going to do the soldering. Yeah, somehow I lost the video where I did the actual soldering, but here you see I'm sliding up the heat shrink tubing, and I'll just heat that up and close up and protect the connections. You can do this with electrical tape, of course, too. Okay, while inside, I just thought it would be a good time to take a look at the gears and the greasing and that sort of stuff. And it just looked like the grease had really dried up in this thing, and it looks so clean, almost as though it had never really seen the grease. So anyway, I just plan to slop some grease in there and hope that it helps. Okay, with the greasing done, it was just time to put everything back in. It all slides in pretty easily. Even the switch and everything slid in pretty well. So the problem came when I tried to fit the other half of the casing on, and it just wouldn't go. And that turned out to be that thicker cord that I used. As you can see here, there's this tab that presses up against the cord, and it assumes that cord is a certain diameter. So I'm just going to clip it down to accommodate the thicker cord. Okay, with that done, then these 2 nuts can go back in place, and then the 2 halves of the case, of course, will go back together again. And then it's just a matter of inserting and screwing down those 8 screws, plus the 2 screws that hold the guard. Okay, with the new power cord and the switch working properly, we're going to call this a success.